The mysterious invitation. Alex stood on the edge of the crystal-clear alien lake, the warm glow of the planet's twin suns reflecting off the water's surface. He had only arrived on Oris 5, a peaceful alien resort planet, the day before, hoping to take a break from the chaos of human colonies. Everything here felt surreal. The air was lighter, the colors more vivid, and the locals, well, they were polite but distant, all except for one. Lyra, the alien girl he had met earlier that day, had approached him with a shy but determined expression. She was tall and graceful, her emerald green skin glistening under the sunlight. Her large, expressive eyes shimmered with curiosity, and her voice carried a melodic tone that made her words sound like a song. Unlike the others, she seemed genuinely interested in talking to him. "You should see the hidden lake," Lyra had said softly, her gaze darting around as if she were afraid someone might overhear. "It's not on the tourist maps, but it's special." Alex hesitated. He wasn't sure if he should trust her. She seemed nervous, almost too eager to convince him. "What's so special about it?" he asked, trying to gauge her intentions. Lyra bit her lip, a very human-like gesture that caught Alex off guard. "The lake has properties. It reacts to those who enter it. I can't explain it. You'll have to see for yourself." She paused, then added, "It's safe. I promise." Her sincerity won him over. Despite the strangeness of her invitation, Alex couldn't shake his curiosity. After all, wasn't that why he had come here? To explore the unknown. Now, standing at the edge of the hidden lake, Alex was beginning to second-guess his decision. The lake didn't look ordinary. The water wasn't just clear. It shimmered with an iridescent glow, as if tiny stars were trapped beneath its surface. The surrounding rocks were covered in faintly glowing symbols that pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. It was beautiful, yes, but also unsettling. "This is it," Lyra said, stepping beside him. She had been quiet during their trek through the dense alien forest, but now she seemed almost giddy. Her hands trembled slightly as she removed the thin shawl draped over her shoulders, revealing intricate, glowing patterns on her skin. The patterns moved, shifting like flowing rivers of light. "What are those?" Alex asked, unable to look away. Lyra glanced down at her arms, a small smile tugging at her lips. "They're marks from my ancestors. They only appear in places like this, where the energy is strong." "Energy," Alex repeated, feeling a knot form in his stomach. He wasn't sure he liked the sound of that. Lyra nodded, stepping closer to the water's edge. "The lake is alive in its own way. It can sense emotions, intentions, even memories. That's why I brought you here." She turned to face him, her eyes glowing softly. "I wanted to see how it reacts to a human." Alex took a cautious step back. "Wait, hold on. You mean this lake is sentient?" "Not exactly," Lyra said quickly, raising her hands in a calming gesture. "It doesn't think like we do. It's more like a mirror. It reflects what's inside you." Her voice grew softer. "It's not dangerous, but it can be intense." Intense. That was not a word Alex wanted to hear. He looked at the lake again, its shimmering surface rippling gently despite the absence of wind. A faint hum filled the air, so low it was almost imperceptible, but it made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. "Why me?" Alex asked. "Why not one of your own people?" Lyra hesitated, her eyes dropping to the ground. "Because it's never reacted to us the way the legends say it will. My people think the stories are just myths, but I've always believed there's some truth to them. The legends speak of humans, how they carry something unique, something the lake has been waiting for." She looked up at him, her expression earnest. "You're the first human to ever visit Oris 5. I couldn't miss this chance." Alex sighed, running a hand through his hair. This was not how he had planned to spend his vacation. And what happens if the lake doesn't react? Or if it reacts badly? "It won't," Lyra said, her confidence returning. I'll be with you. If anything feels wrong, we'll leave immediately." He stared at her, trying to decide if she was naive, reckless, or simply desperate for answers. Either way, her determination was hard to ignore. Against his better judgment, he found himself agreeing. "All right, but if I grow a third arm or something, I'm blaming you." Lyra laughed, a light, musical sound that eased some of his tension. "Fair enough." As she stepped into the water, the glowing patterns on her skin grew brighter, illuminating the lake in a soft, ethereal light. She turned to him, extending her hand. "Come on, Alex. It's just water." With a deep breath, Alex removed his boots and stepped forward. The moment his foot touched the water, a tingling sensation shot up his leg, as if the lake were welcoming him. He froze, staring at the shimmering surface. It felt alive. "See," Lyra said, her smile widening. "It likes you." Alex wasn't so sure about that, but it was too late to back up now. Taking her hand, he waded into the glowing lake, unaware that his presence had already begun to awaken something ancient and powerful beneath its surface. The enchanted waters. The lake's glow seemed to intensify as Alex stepped deeper into the water. Each ripple sent shimmering waves of light across the surface, creating an otherworldly dance that captivated his senses. He couldn't tell if the tingling sensation in his legs was from the cool water or the lake's strange energy. It felt as if the lake were alive, reaching out to him. Lyra swam a few feet ahead, her movements graceful and fluid. The glowing patterns on her skin pulsed softly, reflecting her excitement. She turned back to Alex, her vibrant eyes sparkling. "Do you feel it yet?" she asked, her voice carrying across the still air like a gentle melody. "Feel what?" Alex replied, waiting cautiously. He wasn't sure how he felt, both fascinated and uneasy. The water was unlike anything he had ever experienced. It seemed to cradle him, as if the lake itself were curious about his presence. Lyra swam closer, her expression a mix of eagerness and mystery. The connection. The lake doesn't just respond to anyone. It senses who you are inside, your emotions, your memories, even your intentions. It's like a mirror, but deeper. Alex raised an eyebrow. A mirror that reads minds. Sounds like a privacy invasion. Lyra chuckled, her laugh echoing softly across the glowing water. "Not exactly. It doesn't take from you. It reflects back. You'll see soon." She reached out, gesturing for him to follow her toward the center of the lake. Alex hesitated, but eventually gave in, wading deeper until the water reached his chest. The tingling sensation grew stronger, almost magnetic. He couldn't deny the allure of the lake. It was as if it called to him, urging him to let go of his doubts. "Why does this feel strange?" Alex asked, his voice quieter now, almost reverent. "It's like the water is alive." "It is," Lyra said softly, her tone reverent. "The lake is ancient, older than any of our civilizations. My people believe it was left behind by the creators, a gift to help us understand ourselves. But over time, we forgot how to truly connect with it." Alex frowned. "And you think humans can do what your people can't?" Lyra swam closer, her glowing patterns casting soft light on his face. "The lake reacts to something unique in humans. My ancestors called it the fire of change. They believe humans carried a spark that could awaken the lake's full potential." Her gaze softened. "I don't know if it's true, but you're here now. I had to see." Alex didn't know what to say. The idea of being part of some ancient prophecy felt absurd, but the lake's energy was impossible to ignore. As he stood in the water, he felt a strange sense of peace, like the world around him had faded away, leaving only the gentle rhythm of the lake. Without warning, the water around Lyra began to swirl, forming intricate patterns that mirrored the glowing symbols on her skin. She closed her eyes, her breathing steady, as if she were in a trance. Alex watched in awe as the patterns expanded, spreading outward like ripples on a pond. The lake seemed to respond to her, its light growing brighter and more vibrant. "What's happening?" Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra opened her eyes, and they glowed with an intensity he hadn't seen before. "It's starting. The lake is recognizing you." Before Alex could respond, the water around him began to shift. He felt a pull, gentle but insistent, as if the lake were guiding him. The glowing patterns reached him, wrapping around his body like tendrils of light. For a moment, he panicked, but the sensation wasn't painful. It was warm, almost comforting. Images began to flash in his mind, memories he hadn't thought about in years. His childhood, his family, the struggles he had faced on Earth. The lake wasn't just showing him these moments. It was making him feel them, as if he were reliving them. The joy, the pain, the hope, it all came rushing back in vivid detail. "This is intense," Alex said, his voice trembling. "It's like the lake knows everything about me." Lyra nodded, her expression serene. "It's connecting with you. The more open you are, the more you'll understand its power." But Alex wasn't sure he wanted to be open. The lake was unearthing emotions he had buried long ago, and it was overwhelming. He tried to pull away, but the water seemed to hold him in place, its energy wrapping around him like an invisible force. "Relax," Lyra said gently, placing a glowing hand on his arm. "You're fighting it. The lake doesn't want to harm you. It wants to show you something." "What?" Alex asked, his voice filled with both fear and curiosity. "What does it want to show me?" Lyra smiled, her gaze full of wonder. "Your truth, and maybe the truth we've been searching for." The lake's glow intensified, and the patterns around Alex began to shift. The tingling sensation turned into a deep warmth, spreading through his entire body. He felt weightless, as if he were floating in a dream. The lake wasn't just showing him memories. It was creating something new, something he couldn't yet comprehend. As the light around him grew brighter, Alex realized that he was no longer afraid. The lake's energy was strange, yes, but it wasn't malicious. It was curious, just like him. And for the first time since he had arrived on Oris 5, he felt like he belonged. "Are you ready?" Lyra asked, her voice soft, but filled with anticipation. Alex looked at her, then at the shimmering water around him. He didn't know what was coming next, but he nodded anyway. "Let's find out." The wild reaction. The glowing patterns in the water danced wildly around Alex, shifting and swirling, as if the lake had come alive in a way he couldn't fully grasp. The gentle tingling sensation he had felt earlier was now an electric buzz coursing through his body, making his heart race. He turned to Lyra, who was still standing calmly a few feet away, her shimmering skin radiating light like a living beacon. But something had changed. Lyra's usually graceful demeanor seemed different, off, almost unrecognizable. Her eyes, once full of quiet curiosity, now burned with an intensity that made Alex uneasy. Her movements became erratic, her arms slicing through the water as she swam in wide, unpredictable loops. The glowing patterns on her skin pulsed faster, brighter, as though the lake's energy were overwhelming her. "Lyra," Alex called out, his voice echoing across the water. "What's happening to you?" She didn't answer. Instead, she let out a laugh, loud, wild, and entirely unlike the soft, melodic chuckle he had heard before. It wasn't joyful. It was unsettling. The lake seemed to respond to her frenzy, the water churning violently around her. The glowing patterns extended outward, forming intricate, web-like shapes that connected Lyra to the lake itself. Alex's instincts screamed at him to get out of the water, but his feet refused to move. He was trapped in the surreal spectacle unfolding before him, his body frozen as the lake's energy surged around him. "Lyra," he shouted again, more urgently this time. "Snap out of it." Her head whipped around, and she locked eyes with him. For a moment, he thought he saw a flicker of recognition, a glimpse of the Lyra he had met earlier. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by something alien and primal. Her voice, distorted and echoing, cut through the chaos. "It's too strong," she said, her words trembling. I can't control it." Alex's heart sank. He had trusted her, followed her into this strange, glowing lake, and now it seemed like both of them were in over their heads. The water around him began to pull, like an invisible current was dragging him toward Lyra. He fought against it, but the force was too strong. "Alex!" Lyra screamed, her voice cracking with desperation. "Get out, before it's too late." But it was already too late. The lake's energy surged, and Alex felt a sudden, overwhelming heat envelop him. His vision blurred, and the world around him seemed to dissolve into a kaleidoscope of light and sound. His memories, flooded his mind again, but this time they were mixed with something else. Images of a world he didn't recognize, of people and places that felt familiar yet foreign, flashed before his eyes. He saw Lyra, younger and surrounded by figures who looked like her, their glowing patterns dim and lifeless. He saw a massive structure deep beneath the lake, its surface covered in the same intricate symbols that now swirled around him. And then he saw himself, not as he was now, but as something more. A figure bathed in light, standing at the center of a vast, shimmering expanse. "What is this?" Alex whispered, his voice barely audible over the roar of the lake. "What's happening to me?" "It's the lake," Lyra's voice echoed in his mind, though her lips didn't move. "It's recognizing you. Your emotions, your thoughts. It's amplifying them. You're changing it. And it's changing you." Before he could respond, Lyra's body convulsed, and she let out a scream that shook the air. The glowing patterns on her skin exploded outward, and the water around her erupted in a blinding cascade of light. Alex shielded his eyes, but he couldn't block out the sheer intensity of the energy radiating from her. When the light finally dimmed, Alex lowered his arm and gasped. Lyra had transformed. Her glowing patterns were no longer just on her skin. They floated around her like ethereal ribbons of light. Her eyes, now completely white, stared at him with an otherworldly calm. "Lyra?" Alex asked hesitantly, his voice trembling. She tilted her head, as if trying to remember who he was. "The lake," she said slowly, her voice distant and hollow. "It's awakened. You've awakened it." Alex's blood ran cold. "What do you mean? What's awakened?" Before she could answer, the lake erupted again, this time in a surge of water and light so powerful it knocked Alex off his feet. He plunged beneath the surface, the world around him dissolving into a chaotic blur of colors and sounds. He struggled to swim, but the lake's energy held him in place, pulling him deeper and deeper. Just as he thought he would drown, the water stilled, and everything went silent. Alex found himself floating in a vast, glowing expanse, the lake's energy wrapping around him like a cocoon. He could see Lyra above him, her transformed figure glowing brighter than ever. And then a voice, not Lyra's, echoed in his mind. Deep, ancient, and resonating with power, it spoke a single word: catalyst. Alex's eyes widened. Whatever was happening, it wasn't just about the lake or Lyra. It was about him. A dangerous surge. The tranquility of the glowing lake shattered as an ominous hum rippled through the water. Alex, still trying to process Lyra's transformation, felt the vibrations travel through his chest like a heavy drumbeat. The shimmering patterns on the water surface began to fragment and reform, as if the lake itself were alive and agitated. "Lyra!" Alex called out, his voice echoing against the now turbulent waves. But the alien girl, bathed in a surreal light, seemed entranced by the chaos around her. Her arms were outstretched, her body floating effortlessly in the center of the lake, as if she were a part of it now. Her voice rang out, not in words, but in haunting notes that seemed to resonate with the lake's energy. The eerie harmony was interrupted by a sudden, sharp crack from below. Alex looked down, his heart racing as the lake's glow intensified beneath him. Strange, shadowy shapes began to emerge, twisting and writhing just beneath the surface. They looked like creatures, long, sinuous forms with glowing eyes that pierced through the water's depths. Their movements were fluid yet deliberate, circling the area like predators waiting for the right moment to strike. "What the hell is that?" Alex muttered, his voice barely audible over the growing cacophony of sound and light. His instincts screamed at him to get out of the water, but his legs felt rooted in place. Every time he tried to move, the lake's pull grew stronger, as if it were holding him there on purpose. Above him, Lyra's voice grew louder, her melody shifting into something more desperate. Her glowing patterns flared wildly, sending arcs of light across the water. She turned to Alex, her once serene face now filled with fear. "Alex," she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "It's waking up. It's reacting to you." "What's waking up?" Alex demanded, struggling to keep his balance as the water churned violently around him. "What's going on?" Lyra's glowing eyes locked onto his. "The Guardians," she said, her voice trembling. "They'd protect the lake, but they don't understand you. They see you as a threat." Before Alex could respond, one of the shadowy shapes beneath the surface shot upward. It broke through the water with a deafening roar, revealing a massive, serpentine creature covered in glowing rune-like symbols. Its sleek body shimmered with the same energy as the lake, its translucent fins cutting through the air like blades. Alex froze, his mind racing. The creature's eyes, twin orbs of brilliant light, fixed on him with an unsettling intelligence. It let out another roar, the sound vibrating through the air like a sonic wave. The other shadowy shapes began to rise as well, their forms just as massive and otherworldly. They encircled Alex and Lyra, their movements methodical and threatening. "Lyra, what do we do?" Alex yelled, his voice cracking under the pressure. Lyra's glow flickered as she fought to maintain her connection to the lake. "You have to calm them," she cried. "The lake responds to emotion. Your fear is making them aggressive. Calm them." Alex snapped, panic creeping into his voice. "They're giant, glowing monsters. How am I supposed to calm them?" But Lyra didn't answer. Her energy surged again, and she floated higher above the water, her glowing patterns spreading out like wings. The serpentine creatures turned their attention to her, their roars shifting to low, guttural growls. It was as if they were waiting for her to act. Alex's mind raced. He remembered what Lyra had said earlier about the lake being a mirror, reflecting what was inside him. If his fear was fueling the creature's aggression, then he had to find a way to suppress it. But how? The creatures were massive, alien, and entirely unpredictable. Every instinct he had screamed at him to run, but there was nowhere to go. Taking a deep breath, Alex closed his eyes and tried to focus. The lake's energy was still coursing through him, amplifying his emotions and memories. He thought about Earth, about the people he cared about and the challenges he had faced. Slowly, he replaced his fear with determination. He wasn't going to let this lake, or these creatures, control him. The change was immediate. The serpentine creatures paused, their glowing eyes narrowing, as if they sensed the shift in his emotions. The water around Alex began to calm, its violent waves smoothing into gentle ripples. The hum in the air softened, becoming a steady, rhythmic pulse. Lyra's voice cut through the silence, filled with awe. "It's working," she said. "They're responding to you." Alex opened his eyes and saw the creatures lowering their heads, their once threatening movements now slow and deliberate. One of them swam closer, its massive form gliding just beneath the surface. It stopped in front of him, its glowing eyes meeting his. Alex held his breath, unsure of what to do. The creature tilted its head, studying him. Then, to his surprise, it let out a low melodic hum, a sound that resonated deep within his chest. It wasn't a roar or a growl, but something gentle, almost curious. The other creatures joined in, their hums blending together into a hauntingly beautiful symphony. "They're testing you," Lyra said, her voice trembling with relief. "They want to know if you're worthy." "Worthy of what?" Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra smiled faintly, her glowing patterns dimming slightly as she descended back into the water. "The lake's trust, its power, and the truth it's been guarding for centuries." Before Alex could ask what she meant, the largest of the creatures dove beneath the surface, its glowing body leaving a trail of light in its wake. The others followed, disappearing into the depths as quickly as they had appeared. The lake stilled once more, its glow soft and calming. Alex turned to Lyra, his chest heaving. "Is it over?" Lyra shook her head, her expression somber. "No," she said quietly. "It's only just begun." The water around them began to shimmer again, and Alex felt the pull of the lake intensify. Whatever test he had just passed, it was only the beginning of something far greater and far more dangerous. The revelation. As the lake's waters calmed, a deafening silence filled the air. Alex stood frozen, chest heaving, his mind racing to process what had just happened. The massive serpentine creatures had disappeared, leaving behind only faint ripples on the surface. The glowing patterns in the water shifted, converging toward the center of the lake, where Lyra floated motionless. Her radiant form pulsed faintly, as though she were connected to the lake in ways Alex couldn't comprehend. "Lyra," Alex called out, his voice hesitant. She didn't respond. Her head was tilted back, her eyes closed, and her glowing patterns shimmered rhythmically, like a heartbeat. A deep, resonant voice echoed through the air, startling Alex. It wasn't coming from Lyra. It was coming from the lake itself. "The catalyst has arrived." The voice was ancient, layered with countless tones that seemed to speak directly into Alex's mind. He turned in all directions, searching for the source, but there was nothing. Just the lake, glowing brighter now, as if it had awakened fully. "What catalyst?" Alex demanded, his voice shaking. "What are you talking about?" The lake's glow intensified, and the patterns in the water began to shift, forming massive symbols that stretched out around him. They weren't just decorations, they were words, though in no language Alex had ever seen. Yet, somehow, he understood their meaning. They spoke of a prophecy, a cycle, and a choice. Lyra stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She looked at Alex, her expression a mixture of awe and fear. "It's real," she whispered, her voice trembling. "The stories, the prophecy. You're the one." "What prophecy?" Alex asked, stepping toward her. "What does this have to do with me?" Lyra hesitated, as if unsure how to explain. "The lake is a creation of the ancients," she began, her voice steadying. "They were the first beings in our galaxy, long before any of our civilizations existed. They created the lake to guard their greatest secret, something they called the balance. They believed that one day, a being with the right spark would come to awaken it. That being is you." Alex shook his head, incredulous. "That's ridiculous. I'm just a guy from Earth. I don't have a spark, or whatever you're talking about." Lyra stepped closer, her glowing patterns casting soft light on his face. "You don't understand. Humans are unique. Your kind carries something no other species does, the ability to adapt, to change, to ignite the impossible. The lake has been waiting for someone like you." Before Alex could argue, the lake's voice returned, cutting through their conversation. "The balance is fractured. The galaxy is dying." The words sent a chill down Alex's spine. He glanced at Lyra, but she looked just as shaken. "What does that mean?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The lake responded not with words, but with images. They flooded Alex's mind in a torrent of light and sound, showing him glimpses of a galaxy on the brink of collapse, entire planets consumed by war, civilizations crumbling under the weight of their own greed and fear. And at the center of it all, a massive structure, a glowing spire that radiated power, but also instability. "It's the Nexus," Lyra said softly, as if reading his thoughts. "The ancients built it to maintain the balance, but without the catalyst to guide it, the Nexus has become unstable. If it fails completely, the galaxy will tear itself apart." Alex staggered back, overwhelmed by the enormity of what he was hearing. "You're telling me the fate of the galaxy depends on me?" Lyra nodded, her expression grim. "The lake chose you, Alex. You're the catalyst. You're the only one who can restore the balance." He ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. This was insane. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't even sure why he had agreed to come to this lake in the first place. "What if I can't do it?" he asked, his voice cracking. "What if I fail?" "The lake doesn't make mistakes," Lyra said firmly. "If it chose you, it means you have what it takes. But you have to trust it. And yourself." Before Alex could respond, the lake began to glow even brighter, its energy swirling upward into a massive column of light. The column pulsed rhythmically, and from its core emerged a crystalline orb, suspended in midair. It radiated a warmth that Alex could feel even from a distance, and its surface was etched with the same intricate symbols that covered the lake. Lyra's eyes widened. "That's the heart of the Nexus," she said in awe. "It's been hidden here, waiting for you to claim it." Alex stared at the orb, his heart pounding. It seemed to pulse in time with his own heartbeat, as if it were calling to him. Every instinct he had screamed at him to run, but he couldn't. The lake, the orb, the prophecy, it was all too much to ignore. Taking a deep breath, Alex stepped forward. The orb seemed to respond, glowing brighter with each step he took. He reached out hesitantly, his hand trembling, and as his fingers brushed the surface, a surge of energy shot through him. Memories, emotions, and knowledge that weren't his flooded his mind, overwhelming him with their sheer intensity. When the surge subsided, Alex felt different. He didn't know how to describe it, but something inside him had changed. He turned to Lyra, who was watching him with a mixture of hope and fear. "What now?" he asked, his voice steadier than he expected. Lyra smiled faintly. "Now we find the Nexus, and you restore the balance." The lake's voice echoed one final time, resonating deep within his soul. "The journey begins." Alex tightened his grip on the orb, determination hardening in his chest. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he knew one thing for certain. There was no turning back now. The climactic harmony. The orb pulsed in Alex's hands, sending ripples of light through the lake and into the sky above. The once tranquil environment now felt charged with a raw, untamed energy that seemed to connect everything. The water, the air, and even Alex himself. He could feel it coursing through him, a strange yet exhilarating force that made him feel simultaneously powerful and fragile. This was no ordinary artifact. The orb was alive, and it was responding to him. Lyra swam closer, her glowing patterns dimmer now, as if the lake's energy had shifted its focus entirely onto Alex. Her voice was steady but laced with urgency. "The heart has chosen you, Alex, but you're not finished yet. The lake gave you the key, but it's up to you to use it." Alex glanced at the glowing orb, its intricate patterns shifting like liquid light under his touch. "How?" he asked, his voice tinged with both determination and doubt. "What am I supposed to do?" "The Nexus is unstable," Lyra explained, her glowing eyes meeting his. "The heart can restore its balance, but it requires harmony, between you and the lake, between your emotions and your purpose. You must channel the lake's energy and guide it into the heart. But be careful, if your focus wavers, the energy could destroy everything." "No pressure, then," Alex muttered, clutching the orb tightly. As he prepared himself, the lake began to change again. The water's glow intensified, and the serpentine creatures from earlier emerged from the depths, circling him and Lyra in silence. Their massive, glowing eyes were no longer threatening but watchful, as if they were guardians waiting to see if he would succeed. The air grew thick with anticipation as the lake's energy gathered around Alex, swirling like a vortex. The orb in his hands became heavier, its light growing brighter with each passing second. Alex closed his eyes, trying to steady his breathing. He could feel the lake probing him, testing his resolve. Every doubt, every fear, and every fragment of uncertainty rose to the surface, threatening to break his focus. "You can do this," Lyra said softly, her voice cutting through the chaos. "The lake chose you for a reason. Trust it, and trust yourself." Alex nodded, though his heart was pounding. He took a deep breath and let himself sink into the lake's energy, allowing it to flow through him. At first, it was overwhelming, like trying to hold back a tidal wave. But gradually, he began to find a rhythm, a delicate balance between control and surrender. As he opened himself to the lake, his mind filled with images, visions of the nexus, glowing and majestic, suspended in the void of space. He saw its fractured core, cracks spreading across its surface like veins of darkness. He saw the chaos it had unleashed on the galaxy, planets torn apart, civilizations lost, and countless lives caught in a crossfire. But he also saw hope, a glimmer of light that grew brighter with each beat of the heart. The lake's energy surged, and Alex channeled it into the orb. The patterns on its surface shifted, aligning with the glowing symbols in the water. The serpentine creatures hummed in unison, their voices blending with the lake's resonant pulse. It was as if the entire world had come together in this one moment, waiting for Alex to act. But the harmony was fragile. The lake's energy was raw and volatile, and Alex could feel it straining against his control. Memories and emotions flooded his mind, moments of joy and sorrow, triumph and failure. The lake was testing him, forcing him to confront the deepest parts of himself. He saw flashes of his life on Earth, his family, his struggles, the times he had doubted himself. He saw the people he had left behind, the choices he had made, and the person he had become. It was all laid bare before him, demanding his acceptance. "You're more than your past," Lyra's voice echoed, though she didn't speak aloud. "The lake isn't looking for perfection, it's looking for truth." Alex clenched his fists, his grip on the orb tightening. He let the memories wash over him, no longer fighting them. Yes, he had made mistakes. Yes, he had doubts. But he had also grown, learned, and endured. He was not defined by his failures, but by his resilience. As he embraced this truth, the lake's energy shifted. The chaos subsided, replaced by a calm, steady flow. The orb in his hands grew lighter, its glow softening into a warm, golden hue. The patterns on its surface aligned perfectly, and the air around him filled with a sense of profound peace. "It's working," Lyra said, her voice filled with awe. The serpentine creatures lowered their heads, their glowing forms shimmering as they bowed in unison. The lake's energy surged one final time, flowing through Alex and into the orb. The light from the heart expanded, illuminating the entire lake in a brilliant, radiant glow. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the light faded. The lake returned to its serene state, the glowing patterns on its surface dimming into gentle ripples. The orb in Alex's hands was still, its power now contained and balanced. Alex opened his eyes, his breath catching as he looked around. The lake was calm, its beauty even more striking in the aftermath of the chaos. Lyra stood beside him, her glowing patterns dim but serene. She smiled, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You did it," she said softly. "You restored the heart." Alex looked down at the orb, its surface smooth and warm. He didn't feel powerful or extraordinary. He felt humbled. Whatever he had done, it wasn't just his achievement. It was the lake, Lyra, and the strange connection that had brought them together. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice quiet. Lyra's smile widened. "Now we take the heart to the nexus, and together we restore the balance." as the serpentine creatures retreated into the depths and the lake's glow returned to its tranquil state. Alex felt a sense of purpose unlike anything he had ever known. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, he believed he could face whatever lay ahead. The aftermath. The glow of the lake began to fade, leaving behind a serene calmness that felt almost unnatural after the storm of energy and emotions that had just unfolded. Alex stood at the water's edge, the crystalline orb, the heart of the nexus, resting in his hands. Its surface, once pulsating with raw power, now shimmered gently, as though it had settled into a quiet slumber. The symbols etched on it no longer shifted but remained steady, their intricate patterns radiating warmth. Lyra approached him, her movements slow and deliberate. The glowing patterns on her skin had dulled, almost as if the lake's energy had drained her. Yet, her face wore an expression of quiet triumph and profound relief. She stopped a few steps away, her glowing eyes meeting his. "You did it," she said softly, her voice carrying a mixture of awe and gratitude. "You've awakened the heart. The lake has chosen you." Alex exhaled deeply, the weight of the moment finally hitting him. "I'm not sure I did anything," he replied, shaking his head. "It felt more like the lake decided for me." Lyra smiled faintly. "The lake doesn't choose lightly. It saw something in you that even you might not see yet." Alex glanced down at the orb, his reflection distorted on its smooth surface. The weight of what had just happened, of what he had become a part of, felt almost unbearable. "So, what now? What am I supposed to do with this?" Lyra stepped closer, her tone growing serious. "The heart is the key to restoring the nexus and repairing the balance across the galaxy. But its journey doesn't end here. You have to take it to the nexus and guide its energy. Without you, it won't work." Alex frowned. "And where exactly is this nexus?" Lyra hesitated, then raised her hand. A glowing hologram projected from her palm, showing a vast structure suspended in space, a spire of light and energy that seemed both ancient and otherworldly. It was beautiful and terrifying, its fractured surface pulsing faintly, like a dying star. "It's here," she said, pointing to a star system on the edge of the hologram. "The nexus is hidden, protected by the remnants of the ancients' defenses. Only the heart can deactivate them and allow access." Alex stared at the projection, his mind racing. "You're telling me I have to go there, alone?" "You won't be alone," Lyra said firmly. "I'll go with you. The lake's energy is part of me now, and I can help guide you. But you're the catalyst, Alex. This journey is yours." He rubbed his temples, overwhelmed by the enormity of it all. "This feels too big. I'm just one guy. What if I screw it up?" "You won't," Lyra said, her voice unwavering. "The lake believes in you, and so do I." Her words, though simple, struck a chord deep within him. Alex didn't know why the lake had chosen him or what made him different, but standing here, holding the heart and facing Lyra's unwavering gaze, he felt a spark of confidence he hadn't known he possessed. Suddenly, the lake's waters rippled, drawing their attention. The serpentine creatures re-emerged, their glowing forms circling the pair in a slow, deliberate motion. They lowered their massive heads toward Alex, their luminous eyes filled with something he could only describe as respect. It was as if they, too, acknowledged his role in what was to come. Lyra smiled. "They're offering their blessing. It's a rare thing, Alex. They trust you." "Great," Alex muttered, managing a weak smile. "No pressure." The largest of the creatures hummed, a deep, resonant sound that sent vibrations through the air. As the hum faded, the lake began to dim further, its glow retreating until the water appeared almost normal. The ancient energy that had dominated the space seemed to settle, leaving behind an unearthly stillness. Lyra turned to Alex, her expression solemn. "The lake has done its part. It's up to us now." Alex nodded, gripping the heart tightly. "Then let's not waste any more time. How do we get to the nexus?" Lyra's faint smile returned. "Follow me." She led him away from the lake, the alien forest surrounding them alive with faint, glowing lights that flickered like fireflies. The path ahead was uncertain, but Alex felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. A sense of purpose. The heart of the Nexus, the balance of the galaxy, the trust of an ancient lake and its guardians. It was all resting on his shoulders now. As they disappeared into the forest, the lake lay quiet behind them, its energy dormant but watchful, as if bidding farewell to its chosen catalyst. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Alex knew there was no turning back. The journey to the Nexus had begun, and with it, the chance to restore a galaxy on the brink of collapse.